listening to the Talkative Toastmaster podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Surplus. In this podcast, we explore how Toastmasters can help you to polish your public speaking skills, communicate with confidence, and amplify your authenticity. You'll hear from my fellow Toastmasters and I how this global organisation has impacted our lives for the better and how it could impact yours. Now, let's get talkative. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 37 of the Talkative Toastmaster podcast. This week, my guest is Tammy van der Reijden from the Cairns Speakers Club. Tammy and I got chatting at the recent district leader training where we were both learning about our new role of area director. Tammy has been in Toastmasters for just over a year and has already moved into the position of Area 9 Director within Northern Division. Talk about a huge leap for a relatively new Toastmaster. Tammy, I can't wait to hear your story. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Mel. It was really nice to meet you at the training. You know, it was a big weekend, lots
Yes.
to learn. And when I saw your name pop up and I saw you sitting over there, I'd already listened to the podcast and you mentioned it, and I was really excited to get to know you a little bit. And I'm really excited to be here. A tiny bit nervous. This is my first podcast. I'm a podcast virgin.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe one day I'll be a famous podcaster and you can go, I was Tammy's very first podcast.
Absolutely. And it's great to have you. And yeah, definitely it was a big weekend. And I think it's been a very big month since that weekend. So I'm sure we can dive into our area director roles. But do you want to start by telling us why you first got into Toastmasters?
Well, yeah, like you said when you introduced me, which is such a lovely introduction, I am very, very new to Toastmasters. In fact, I went along to my first meeting in June last year, and so I've really only been a member for just over a year. I think my membership became official in July last year, so I'm at about the 13-month mark as we're recording this podcast. Yeah. So not a lot of time has passed. I got into Toastmasters for a couple of reasons, actually. The first was that in a former career pathway many years ago, about 12 years ago now, I was very, very fortunate to have an absolutely fantastic job with the Northern Territory Government. I lived in Alice Springs at the time, and I worked at a place called the Alice Springs Desert Park, which is one of the only bioparks in the world. And a biopark is a place where you interpret the plants, animals, and people and habitats of a region all in a fully immersive way. And I got to be a professional presenter there for 7.5 years of my life. Cool. Every day I was paid to write and research presentations, deliver presentations, some of whom were written by my very talented colleagues. And it was really the most wonderful 7.5 years of my career. And since I stopped that in 2011, I haven't really had an audience. So it was something that I missed a lot. It's a big thing to have a voice in that sort of forum, especially when you're talking about things that people are interested in. And, you know, plants and animals and people of the desert are fascinating stories. So, you know, it was a really amazing time in my life, and I really, really missed it, and I had no outlet for that. I guess I could have become a tour guide or something here in Cairns, but, I've had a little girl at home all of this time, so I haven't really had any outlet to be able to do that. And Toastmasters would work perfectly for that. My daughter's now a high school senior, so she's almost... And I'm almost an empty nester. Yep. So I could really potentially go out and do it for a living again if I really wanted to. But Toastmasters has been a way to get into it. And Nikki, our famous Nikki, one of our trio, she is, of course, the current president of my home club. And she's been very fortunate, well, maybe unfortunate, but she has heard a few of my old desert park presentations. I've had to whip them out at meetings when there's been no one else to give a presentation. So I sort of put my hand up and said, I've got one in the bag from a long time ago. So, Nikki can tell some funny stories about me. I like to be very physical with my presentations. So that was the first reason. But I have got a second reason, though, which is not very unique in my club at the moment.
Okay.
In fact, I think I'm one of 3 people in this situation at my club, and that is that I am a Toastmaster legacy. My mum was a Toastmaster, and in fact, I'm a posthumous Toastmaster legacy. So my mum has passed away, and she passed away many, many years ago.
Yeah.
She was a Toastmaster in Ipswich.
Okay.
So I can remember very well. I think I was probably in grade 12 or maybe just in the first year of uni when she was a Toastmaster.
Yep.
So I can remember her writing some of her speeches.
Yep.
And in fact, I've got 1 or 2 of them in a box of her things.
Oh.
And I have actually thought about whipping them out. And it's not really the Toastmaster thing to do to give someone else's speech.
Oh, I think you could, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if I could give them in quite the same way as her. But I think I would incorporate perhaps parts of them into a speech of my own, maybe a speech about her.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
And there is actually there's 2 other Toastmaster legacies in my club who've joined in the last few months. And I know for sure that one of those is also like myself. She's a posthumous legacy. And I have a feeling the other one might be as well. But her mum, I think, as well, might still be alive, but I don't think is a current Toastmaster. So we have a bit of a tradition at Cairns Speakers of having family members who are also Toastmasters.
It sounds like it. And in fact, I first started Toastmasters with my mum, so we went together.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. So there was a bit of a family connection there as well. It seems to be, I have talked with a few people where they've either started because of one of their parents being a member or started with them together. And I think it's a nice thing to do as a family. In fact, this coming weekend, there's a night on for Colin Williams before he heads off to do his World Championship speech. And they're running a night with him talking down at Helensvale. And I messaged my mother and I said, oh, hey, there's this Toastmasters thing on. Do you want to come? And she's like, yeah. So we're going to go do that together.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Does she still attend a club down there?
No, she doesn't. And I haven't actually asked her why she got out of Toastmasters. I think she's so busy doing other things, but she's always very interested, and she definitely listens to this podcast and doesn't quite send me evaluations of each episode like she did when I first started. But she's good. She picks up points for improvement. I'm like, thanks, Mum.
Good. Yeah. Hi, Mel's mum. More than happy to receive points of improvement as well. Thank you.
I'm sure she'll love you. So, I mean, your desert experience sounded amazing, and you've mentioned that you do a few of those speeches. Is it fun to be able to drag out some of that old material and to be able to relive it and retell the stories?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so amazing. It's something that I'm so connected to those stories, and I'm especially connected to them because my daughter was born in Alice Springs. She is a Territorian, and so I feel really, really, really connected to a lot of the stories because it's such a place of real connection between the land and the people. You feel it very tangibly when you're there. And, when we live in big cities, it's so easy to be disconnected. It's so easy to sort of think that that's something for another time or another place. But when you're in Alice, you do feel it very heavily. It's a place of really imposing mountains as well, formerly huge, like the Rocky Mountains, now just little tiny stubby teeth, but still imposing because the area around it is so flat. You just feel everything so much in your body, to me. I really find it the most amazing place to visit in general, but the very first time that I went to Uluru as an Australian, it's a long way from Alice. Don't think I was there every day.
It's hundreds of kilometres.
It's a long way, but I did go there many times. So I was very lucky. The first time, wow, it's hard to describe, but as an Australian, you're so bombarded with those images and a particular image from a particular point of view. And it's just ingrained into who you are as an Australian. So the first time you go there, it's a really visceral experience. It's like, wow, because the first time you see it, it's gigantic. And then you get closer and closer and closer, and you can't see anything but that. It's so huge. And then you turn to the side and you
Yeah.
realise that Katachuta, the Olgas, is even bigger. You've never even heard of that, or you haven't seen those images as much, but it's way more giant. So, it's a really easy place to tell stories about, and I love doing it nowadays. And I had some funny stories that I wrote, and so I love whipping those ones out as well, because it's always nice to have a bit of brevity at a Toastmasters meeting, I think, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And completely agree with what you're saying. I visited Esrock and, that whole area for my first time last July. And yeah, exactly as you described, you get out there and it's like, holy moly, that thing's huge. It's just so imposing. And I walked around it and rode bikes around it one time. And yeah, just you can very much feel it's such a culture of storytelling out there too, which I think it just lends itself to stories and the history of stories out there. And it's amazing. It is an amazing place.
It would be a great place
sure we could talk about.
to have a Toastmasters conference. Like if we could ever convince Toastmasters International to get an international conference to Australia. I mean, it would be a very expensive exercise because it's not cheap to go there, but it is an amazing place. And the stories that they have from there are truly magical. I'm glad you went. And July, a great time to go.
Oh, it was. And I mean, it was cold and it was hot. it was everything. But yeah, the scenery was amazing. And the stars, I was just so blown away by the stars. I just sort of would sit out there of a night and just look up, and you just don't see that of a night, all those millions of stars. You don't see that certainly, in the cities. It's
no.
Yeah. You got 7 years.
See, easy place to talk about. You can see why I loved my job.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, I'm glad you found an outlet to tell some of those stories again, because I think more people need to know about that. If they haven't been out there, I definitely would recommend it. But what do you most enjoy about being a member of Toastmasters?
Well, my joke answer is that I love having a captive audience because, I really did miss that. And I'm one of these unicorn people, Mel, and you're probably going to find this hard to believe. Maybe not. But I'm an extroverted introvert. So I can speak in front of tens of people, hundreds of people. I've never had the chance to speak in front of thousands, but, I don't have a problem with that. But I'm terrible in a little group. So I'm absolutely horrendous. I'm horrendous at a party. I'm horrendous at meeting new people. I'm nervous. I don't know what to talk about. So Toastmasters gives me those two things. I've got the captive audience, but it's also a small group of people.
Small group.
And they're new people. And so you have to actually engage with them as well, and I'm the vice president of membership for my club.
Oh, yeah,
so
you absolutely have to engage.
My job to It's actually my job to talk to people. So it's been wonderful in that respect. It really has been amazing. So, yes, I get to have my outlet for when I want to have fun and do a dance in front of people while I'm talking about a desert bird or something. But it also does stretch me, and it gets me out of my comfort zone and gets me interacting with people on that lower level where I need to actually learn how to start to ask people questions and connect with them in that way. So it's an uncomfortable learning experience for me sometimes, but it's definitely the right place to do it because it's a very welcoming and supportive environment to learn whatever it is that you've come there to learn.
Indeed, it's very supportive and welcoming, but also I guess you're stretching your comfort zone even more by being an area director where you have to go out and do that with 4 or 5 other clubs.
Yes, very much so. So, yes, I have had an uncomfortable month, I'll say that, because it's a big learning curve for me too. I'm sort of in that generation. I'm 53 and I'm in the weird generation where I know a little bit about computers but not a huge amount about computers. I know that you're fantastic at them, but me, I am not. So, just the whole thing of having to have a new email and having to access new Google Drives. The material that's there is amazing, and I can see that when I can access it properly, I won't have to start everything from scratch, which I'm sure is a problem in Toastmasters, that whole idea of everyone getting into the start of their year and having to do everything all over again and not having any prior learnings that they can access. I can see that that would be a far more difficult undertaking than you and I have taken on now, when there's so much material there to back us up.
Yeah, there is definitely a lot of material, and I think the handovers, are getting. I had a great handover. My former area director, Jeff Roberts, was fantastic and very organised, and he gave me a lot of digital things I could use, and which was very helpful. But yeah, it's great to see that they are bringing it all online. I think it's the way to go, and I think it will make it easier for people to who follow and who we get to hand over to.
That's exactly right. For us in the North, we are in a real rebuilding phase. We all know that Toastmasters International is in a rebuilding phase after COVID, but I feel that Nikki would put her hand up to attest to this as well, and that is that we really were severely decimated. Area 9 has lost a club, unfortunately. Our club, when I joined it, had something like, perhaps had about 6 official members, but of those, really not that many of them were attending. It was really quite dire. And I feel as though some of the other clubs in our area were of the same situation as well. Marlin Coast is another one who's in my new area. I'll be visiting them on Thursday, actually, for my first official area director meeting. And I've been lucky enough to go to that club before. Yep. Nikki's also a member of that club. And they're still a small club as well. And we've got a couple of online clubs as well, one that's got members from all around Australia and another one that's a Darwin club. Yep. So, we're a very small area, but we're rebuilding very fast at Cairns Speakers. And I don't know that that's necessarily all our work. I believe that that's Toastmasters' work as well. And I believe that it's, when you come to the club, if we do manage to get you in the door, it is a very fun club to be at. It's a very generous club. It's a very talented club as well. Lots of very, very talented and very experienced speakers. Nikki and her partner Kai are both very active in speaking at the club. Yeah. So, we're very lucky. And I think now we have almost 18 members.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I guess then the challenge is sort of bedding everyone in, making sure everyone's got mentors, making,
that's right.
That's a lot of new people.
That's right. And there isn't even anyone to be a mentor, because it's really just, there's really not very many of us at all. So there's lots of challenges, that's for sure.
Yeah, and your VP membership. So it's you've got a lot on your plate.
Yes.
How are you finding it, balancing the time? Because
a little bit difficult. Yeah. What were you going to add to that to that question, please?
Well, you've got the online clubs as well, so that's you sort of working with the two different models of meetings.
Two different genres of I mean, it's teaching me a lot about Zoom and those sorts of things. Well, it will be, and so I don't regret that. And it's nice because sometimes that's easier to fit into a busy life. Yeah. So I like the idea of the online clubs because it means I don't have to drive half an hour, get out of my car, do all of those things, go and set up. You can be there 5 minutes before the meeting starts and you're good to go. And they're very prompt with finishing them, particularly Country Communicators. That's a great online club because that is an Australia-wide club. Yeah. So they're very, very strict on timings at the club because they have to be, because some people, particularly when daylight saving kicks in, they're, on really different times. I think some of the members are in Western Australia.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, 2 hours behind.
So, absolutely. Become 3 hours behind. So it's really fascinating to see the differences, but it's really, really difficult to juggle everything. If I'm honest, I think it's one of the lessons that the roles have been sent to me for. I'm pretty much a believer in things come to you for a reason. I think they came to me because I needed to know how to manage stress and how to manage, opposing commitments. And I needed to learn a little bit more about a Google Calendar and all these sort of things. I'm sure that it came to me for a reason.
Yes.
So I'm trying to take some big, deep breaths, because we all know that when you get an area director position, you have to hit the ground running, because it's really within the first 3 or 4 months where an area conference has to happen, and club speech contests have to happen before that. And, all of these things have to happen in a timely manner straight away as soon as you get the job.
Yes, exactly. And then there's sort of the weekend of training, and then club visits. And it's a busy, hectic first few months. I'm looking at my calendar, and for the next till about November, it's full on, and then it will, I think, ease back a little bit over Christmas. But it's pretty crazy. I was like, I'll see you in November
for a break.
But I mean, it's such an interesting take on Toastmasters. You've been getting used to your own club and how it works, but then I guess
that's right.
What an experience so early on in your Toastmasters journey to be seeing how different other clubs do things. So
it's good. It's good. I keep saying that to myself. It's good.
I can do it. But you also have a very, very geographically spread out area.
Absolutely.
I mean, it would have to be one of the biggest areas.
Yeah, that's right. The Northern Division in general, from Mackay North, really, not, of course, with the Papua New Guinean clubs, but, and including our Darwin club, because there's only one club, I believe, in the Northern Territory at the moment. So, it will be interesting. The division contest will be the area contest or conference. I think I'm not even sure whether or not my 2 online clubs will be able to send anyone, or I think Darwin is not just an online club, it might be a hybrid club. I'm yet to meet those guys, but I'm hoping maybe I'm going to get over there at least once this year. I think that would be a fun thing to do. And get me back to the territory. If I can eke out a little bit of a budget, I might see if I can fly over there for a couple of nights and go to one of their meetings. They probably haven't had an area director do that in a while, so I think that's the sort of little mini goal I've given to myself.
How perfect with your background and your experience from the Northern Territory. I mean, it was meant to be.
That's right.
I love it. So there's so much going on in your Toastmasters world, but in the year that you've been a member, what would you say are some of the skills that you've learned? I mean, we've been talking about those skills, but what type of skills would you say have been valuable for you?
If I'm really honest, I think the most valuable skill that I'm learning at Toastmasters, and I would not say that I've gotten on top of this one yet, is around the area of constructive feedback. I'm a very, very overly sensitive soul, and so I've always found it very difficult in my life to accept constructive feedback, which I call criticism. From anyone, whether it be a loved one, whether it be a boss, whether it be, my mum, anyone, a colleague. I've always been overly sensitive to that. And as a consequence, I've never been able to really give it either.
Okay.
So, because if you can't receive it very well, then you don't know how to give it either.
Yeah.
So that has been an amazing skill that is coming out of Toastmasters, because, of course, particularly when you're in a growing club that doesn't have a lot of members, there's encouragement for you to give feedback. When we were a small club and we only had 6 or 7 people, 8 people at a meeting, we would do table topics together. We would, do a evaluation of table topics together. We would sometimes evaluate speeches together.
Oh,
so
cool.
we were learning from each other, learning on the ground, running. And look, it's been really, really amazing. And I can see that I've never put my hand up to be a manager of people, because that's a skill that I never really felt that I had. I couldn't hear criticism from lowers or uppers, and I didn't know how to really give it myself, constructive stuff that's not just the shit sandwich, that people give, the club that I'm in is a very, very talented club. I've said it before and I'll say it again. And in our area, we're renowned as being the evaluation club. And, we've got people like Kai, who is really the best evaluator I have ever, of anyone who's ever given me any feedback at all. He is tremendous, and he gives fantastic feedback to Nikki, and she gives fantastic feedback to him as well. She's very hard to give feedback to because she's an amazing speaker.
Yeah, but even amazing speakers want to hear feedback.
Exactly.
And I know when I talked with her a couple of episodes ago, she was saying that, because she's a professional speaker as well, and
yes.
does it for work. And she was saying that one of the things she likes about Toastmasters is that she does get feedback, and she doesn't get that when she's in a room of an audience who's for where she's being paid to be there. And so
right.
she likes the feedback, and it's true, you wouldn't otherwise get that feedback.
And it is really fantastic. And look, sometimes it's just a little thing, but I've seen her go, yeah, all right, yeah. And I love it too. And I'm getting way better at receiving it as well as providing it to those around me.
Yeah, and I think when it's being given in the spirit of support, and we want you to do better, and everyone's getting similar kinds of feedback. It's not, it's personal and specific, but everyone's getting the same types of feedback. So and that's what we're there for.
Yeah. Absolutely, we are there for that. And it's important as you travel on the Toastmasters journey that you do learn that it's not just about getting up in front of people. It's about learning all of those skills that, look, they're important life skills. They're fantastic career skills, but they're important life skills. They're great life skills for being a mum as well, particularly of a sullen 17-year-old teenage girl. They are great for that too.
Yeah, it's just a nice way to be able to give feedback, because you want people to improve. Well, you want them to see how they can improve. And I think the model that we use encourages that, which is good. It was interesting, a couple of weeks ago, we had Colin Williams come and do a presentation of his practice speech at our club, and there are a lot of fairly new Toastmasters there, and we said, Colin's here, he's here for feedback. Chuck it at him. He's ready to hear any feedback. And I actually found that the newer members and those who were less familiar with our evaluation process and the types of things that people might normally talk about in an evaluation, they found some really interesting points. I'm like sitting there going, wow, that's
good on them.
Feedback. Yeah, and having that courage to just give feedback to a very accomplished speaker. And that I think developing that courage to be able to look at someone who's really good and go, hey, this is where I think, and just pointing small nuggets out. And I think it works both ways. Very experienced people giving newbies feedback and newbies giving very experienced feedback, feedback.
Well, that's right. They're looking at something with fresh eyes, and we know that that's an important thing. I buzz around the workplace health and safety sphere at my job as well. And one of the things that I instigated there was to stop, I'm the representative, and the previous representative was the only person who ever did safety audits at my place of business. And I said, well, that's just stupid, because it's the same person walking around looking at the same thing all the same time. So that's not going to work. You need different people to be casting their eyes over things and seeing things in a different way. And you've just given a perfect illustration of the way that works for Toastmasters. New people seeing something in Colin's speech that normal Toastmasters, long-standing Toastmasters can't see.
Yeah, it's really good to watch. It's just interesting to see everyone's different take on it. And then all of that is, again, slightly different in the online world. So I guess you're getting experience with your online clubs about that, because the delivery is different, the tools are different, different environments.
Yeah, it is. So I think reading the audience is much more difficult in an online situation. We know that we can really get quite dramatic and intense and immediate feedback of what's working and what's not working when you're in the direct environment speaking to people. But when you're in the online environment, much more difficult. So things can go longer than they should, and not that can have the completely wrong tone, because you really don't know what your audience is like. So it must have been very difficult for those Toastmasters who were actually undertaking competitions, and all the way up to international level, just online. Very difficult.
Yeah. Well, also, I don't think you would get the same adrenaline rush. Like when you are standing physically in front of 200 people on a stage or more, however it is, you feel it in your body. And I just can't imagine you'd feel a different pressure, I think, in an online environment, but not that actual physical adrenaline. I'd be interested to chat with people who have done that because in that competition environment, because I just can't imagine that there's that physicality of, I think, speaking on a stage.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, very true, very true. And it's a shame not to get the dopamine and the adrenaline hit, because maybe that's what we're doing it for, a little bit of ADHD.
That's right. But, I mean, I guess that's the way that Toastmasters have to adapt, whatever the circumstances are, whether it's online or hybrid or in person. And
completely, yeah, absolutely.
The fact that we have opportunity to practice in all of those environments now, I think, is a good thing, because so many more people are doing that in the workplace. And so you mentioned evaluations and, giving and receiving feedback is one skill. What else have you sort of learned during your time?
Well, I've certainly learnt to gain some confidence in myself, which, I think that we all suffer a little bit from imposter syndrome as we struggle through our lives. And for someone who lacks a bit of self-confidence and also, is, as I said, one of those extroverted, introverted people, I think that sometimes, you don't have a lot of confidence in getting yourself out there and doing things. So that's certainly something that I've gained from Toastmasters. And sometimes it's just because, hey, look, there's no one around. You've got to be the Toastmaster tonight. And there was a lot of that at the start. We were just stepping up and doing things, not even really knowing what we were doing, just because we had to. There wasn't people around to do it. But it was a great learning environment, and it did give me a lot of confidence in myself. I work for a local government organisation here in Cairns. I work for the Cairns Regional Council, and haven't been there for a long time. This is my first experience, apart from that experience in the Territory, of working for government. And since I've been there, I'd wanted to do this particular challengey sort of thing, because the extrovert in me wants to be part of a team and wants to go and do something challenging. The introverted part of me doesn't, but I really wanted to, but I was just terrified and I had no confidence in myself to do it. But I joined Toastmasters last year, and when the opportunity came again at the end of last year, where they said, okay, who wants to put up their hand and take part in the challenge and represent the council at this local government event that we do in the region, and it becomes an Australia-wide thing. It's what's it called? The Local Government Managers of Australia run this thing called the Rural Management Challenge, and so they get 4 representatives from each council, and you get together and you do a whole bunch of learning beforehand, but then you have a whole day where they just throw things at you. So it might be scenarios about cutting the budget. It might be that you've got, protesting constituents outside of your council buildings. It could be a whole range of things, and it goes for like 8 hours of a day.
Oh, wow.
And as terrifying as that sounds, I really wanted to be a part of it. And I was just too scared. And so Toastmasters gave me the confidence to put in the application, and I did that. And I actually put that I was a Toastmaster on the application. And I said, look, I don't really think I've got very much to give to this, but what I can give is that I know how to speak in public. And whilst I don't think I should necessarily be the one that does it, I can mentor someone else who wants to learn how to do it. And they said they wanted me. So I'm now part of this 4-person team. And in October, also within this 3 months time of when we've got to have conferences and all of this sort of stuff. So just another thing I've added to my huge bag of too many things to do. But it's in work time, so that's okay. On the 23rd of October, we go to bright, sparky Ingham And we take part in this full-day challenge. It's going to be fantastic. And look, there's no way I'd be doing that without Toastmasters, without the added confidence that I've gained from being there. That's for sure.
Isn't it amazing to think, before you joined, and then you look back at what you might have done, even in the last year, and you just think, wow, who knew that was going to happen by walking into that club meeting? I just wanted to go to improve my public speaking and, not die in front of an audience. Like it's amazing where it can take you.
Absolutely. And, we have an amazing leadership trio, and I know that I talk about her a lot because I love her, but,
I love Nikki.
You just have to look at someone like Nikki and you go, wow, Nikki, she does this for a living. And she's even said to me, why don't you, do something, get yourself I think there's something called, it's something to do with Uber or somewhere like that, where you can do like Uber tours or something like that. I'll have to ask her what it is again. And she said, sometimes she'll take people around Rusty's markets and it's like a fresh fruit and vegetable markets that we've got here. And she shows them all the fruits and the tropical vegetables and, all this sort of stuff, and talks to them about them, and they buy some and eat them. And she said, you'd be great at something like that. And I thought, wow, I've never thought of doing anything like that. But, all the opportunities that Toastmasters brings to you are crazy. So, yeah.
But also hearing about what other people are doing with it. And I think that's been one of the things I've loved about doing this podcast, is hearing these stories of where Toastmasters has taken people. Like a couple of my leading edge buddies are presenters on cruise ships, and they're trotting off around the world doing enrichment lectures on, and with your background of, Australiana history, I'm sure. But
sign me up.
Yeah, I know, right? I know, but it's so cool hearing where Toastmasters has taken people, and it then becomes a matter of, especially when you get into some of the more detailed pathways projects, whether it's the podcasting one or the blog or things like that. And if it's an area you want to, or you have an interest in, or you want to develop an interest in, some of those level 4 pathways projects are so good for that, because you can create a body of work
that's right.
You can point to and go, yep, I did that, and pitch yourself at the Ubers or the cruise ships of the world.
I think now I've worked it out. It was an Airbnb thing. So Airbnb experience, I think she said it was. So so it's a sort of an offshoot of that. So, you get an American tourist who comes and wants to have a very boutique experience where you take them out to a local restaurant or you do something. I mean, it sounds fantastic. Nikki's a big foodie as well. She's really, really in tune with food and wine and things as well. So, she's incorporated some of her amazing loves into her side projects. So, now you've got me thinking about around the world for free.
But again, you never know. And until you wouldn't know about that outside of Toastmasters.
Absolutely.
Even if you did, it would be like, well, how do you get involved in that? And then, through a few degrees of separation, Fred can be putting you in touch with, Sam, who's like, he's my agent who gets me onto cruise ships, and
that's
how
right.
cool.
That's right. And being that introverted extrovert, that's what I'm terrible at. I am terrible at networking. So, Toastmasters is that captive networking audience as well, where, it's not that you're forced to network with these people, but you're there for a like-minded cause. You're not being thrust upon somewhere where you're having to market yourself in any way. You are just doing something that you love, or you're there to learn about something. And so that networking happens in a little bit more of a natural way than other ways that I've ever experienced, that's for sure.
Yes, and that's such an interesting perspective. I've never thought about that, but it's networking without the sales pitch.
Yes.
Like it really is. Well, until people start tapping you on the shoulder and say, hey, would you like to be an area director?
That's not the networking that I was thinking that it was going to be.
Sign up for
anyway, we're both here now and we're dealing with it.
Exactly. And being an area director, what are you sort of aiming to achieve this year? What would a great year as an area director look like for you?
Is it politically correct to say that I'm just hoping to survive, Mel?
We'll touch base at the end of the year.
I don't know if that's politically correct to say that. But in some ways I am. Look,
Yeah.
there is a lot of commitments that we have in life. You know, I'm a 53-year-old woman. I've got to the stage where, yes, I've got a child and she's older, but I also host international students in my house. So they take a little bit of work. I've got a relatively new partner in my life.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a job. I'd love to go to the gym. You know, there's a whole heap of things that I've got. So it really is surviving. And look, I'm going to say something that is also perhaps a little bit controversial.
Love it.
But I also hope that at the end of my area director time, I'm going to want to stay in Toastmasters. I'm going to hope that the commitment isn't too much to burn me out a little bit. And I know that there is a bit of burnout in Toastmasters every now and again with the commitments that's required of you in certain things. So it's not that I'm going to only do what's necessary. I'm certainly going to put my best foot forward and try my hardest. But I'm also going to take the advice of Thomas and who was saying at our training that you really need to just do the best that you can, but don't overstretch yourself if you can't. You know, get what's necessary done and do it well, and don't do all the fluffy things if you don't have time to do those.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm going to take for it and what I'm hoping to get out of the year. And I hope that doesn't sound like a cop-out. I feel like it sort of does.
No, not at all. I mean, no. But I find when you get into these roles, then all this other stuff bubbles up and it's like, oh, I thought I had my hand around, you know, my head around what was involved, and then there's all these other things that bubble up.
Yes.
I certainly found that as a president last year. I was like, oh, all these little extra things I didn't know about.
That's right, that you didn't realise. And of course for me, here's the other bit of a curveball in this whole discussion, which I'm not putting out the victim mentality here, I'm just putting out the information. But I got COVID for the competition and conference last year. So I had a speech prepared for the humorous competition and was going to be participating and got COVID like on the Thursday before the Saturday competition. So I couldn't even attend. So I've actually never attended
it was that
a competition or a conference.
Oh, right.
An area one or a district one.
Right. Okay. So you've got to just organise one.
I've just got to organise one. But so I think I'm struggling a little bit with thinking about the timing of the day and how what little extras have to go in.
Yeah.
But you know, it'll be fun and it'll be okay. And it's my home club that's hosting it. So that's also a good thing. I know the people who are there and I know how fantastic they are as Toastmasters and as organisers. So I'm planning on doing lots of delegating.
Yeah, I think that's the other part as well. It's knowing who you can lean on and ask for help. And there's always people that will help. You just got to ask, which I think is a lesson sometimes as well. When you're used to doing everything by yourself, it's like, help.
Absolutely.
Help.
Absolutely. Another really good lesson that this sort of level of Toastmasters can teach you, because that's a lesson I have to learn as well. Thank you for pointing that out to me. Because, you know, sometimes I think you do way too much, particularly if I was a single mum for a couple of years. And so you just do everything really. She helped out my daughter, but she's too young to do very much. So really you're just relying on yourself. So you do need to rely on other people.
Yeah, definitely. And definitely asking. And I do like that, you know, we have the area director mentor, so Deb Barnett, and there's plenty of other people around that will help too. So, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank goodness that.
Phew, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Imagine if you had just had to do it by yourself.
I know. And that wouldn't be fun. Now,
no, definitely not.
Being, you know, what would you say to people who aren't in Toastmasters, who may have been on the fence or maybe sitting out there in their car pondering whether to walk into a meeting, but they're terrified? You know, what would you say about them and just going to a meeting?
I think that is actually the hardest bit, just to get yourself there. What you're going to find when you get there is going to be an extremely welcoming environment. Yeah. And it's the most supportive place that you can imagine for overcoming whatever little demons that you think that you have. If you need to speak for work and you find that you can't do it, then we've got lots of people who have been in that situation. You know, we've got several people at my club who are currently working on that. You know, how to, I've got to get up. I've found myself in this position at work where I need to be, moving up the ranks, and now I need to start evaluating people. I need to start giving presentations. I need to start training. I'd love to do a TED talk one day. I've got this in my head. And it's really the most supportive place to be able to do that. Yeah. And it's fun. It is really, really fun. I never thought that standing up in front of someone for 2 minutes trying to answer a question that you've just been given 5 seconds ago while you were sitting in your seat, how could that ever be fun? But it is fun.
Yeah. And we come back for it each meeting. Give me another one.
That's the best bit of the whole meeting. And you can see, I just love being the table topics master too, because I just love watching people. You can tell when you say a question and then you get the people who just look down straight away, and it's like, okay, I'm going for you.
Yeah.
But in a fun way. And I don't mean for that to be intimidating for new people, because it is the most gentle, supportive environment at the end as well. So you get up there and you say something, everyone claps for you. Yeah. Everyone has something great to say about what you've done. Everyone will come up to you and say at the end, well done, that was amazing. You should be really proud of yourself for getting up at your first meeting. Yeah. And really, you will find it the most rewarding, and you will achieve whatever goals it is that you have. If you really want to get up and learn how to speak, then this is definitely the place to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And there's so many ways, I think, that the projects and the pathway speeches can help people, whether it's there's that interview practice one, whether it's someone actually going for a major interview and they want to practice, and just so many quite random opportunities to speak and to practice like that.
That's right. And I use the pathways material. I go on there all the time and I look up lots of things, and I always follow along with it. I don't just get the speech and think, oh, what have I got to do next? I try really hard to fit it into what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm a bit anally retentive, and I like to do them in order as well if I can. I mean, I'm only still on my first pathway, but I enjoy that bit. And I have found it to be really good information. It's condensed. There's not a lot of it, but you can then grab that and take it and research it and find out other things about it if you want to. And you can come up with some really interesting ways of addressing what they're asking you to address. You don't have to do it exactly the way that they say. It doesn't have to be, exactly as it's written. You can come up with some fun, and if you're creative, oh gosh, we've seen some amazingly creative things. I, at my first icebreaker, I took a scuba tank and I started my speech with my regulator in my mouth, because people used to always tell me that when I was a dive instructor that I could talk underwater. And I can, but I also wanted to illustrate that in my icebreaker.
The one time I was always told that as a kid, you could talk underwater. And the one time in my adult life I actually tried was on the Great Barrier Reef, and I went, it was my first scuba dive, and it was only about, 30 feet, maybe not even, but down on the sea floor, and this reef shark passed, and no one mentioned that a reef shark might remotely be in where I was going to be. And I started screaming, and I started to try and warn the entire group by talking, with my regulator, and I spat it out of my mouth. And then I realized that this was a problem, so I had to get it back in without choking and dying. And I'm trying to warn everyone anyway. So the one time I tried to talk underwater.
Well, let me tell you, if you ever require that skill in the future, you know where to come, because it's a skill that I definitely have.
I don't recommend the talking underwater thing. Lesson learned.
I do. I love it.
Oh, but anyway. So you've been a dive instructor too, I mean.
Yes, I was. That was my former life. Oh. That's my second favourite job as well.
Wow.
Yeah, I was a scuba diving instructor in Brisbane, actually. I used to go diving in Moreton Bay all the time, and there's lots of amazing wrecks in Moreton Bay. It's the best place for wreck diving in all of Queensland. It's fantastic. I've done lots of very cold water diving. I've been in the water with whales in Brisbane.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a magical place to dive.
Oh, you must have so much content for speeches. My goodness. Like, There's so many stories in amongst all of that. Do you talk about that have you done speeches?
Yeah, I do. I've given quite a few speeches around that sort of thing. In fact, I've got a speech planned where someone asked me about night diving once, and they said how scary night diving must be. And I'm thinking about doing a speech in the dark with a torch to talk about night diving.
Oh, that sounds so cool. Can you film it? Can you film it and then, show us? Because, I mean, that's very cool. Yeah, that would definitely set the mood.
Well, that's right. And everyone can have a Siloam stick, just like on a dive. So you get the little,
the break.
The little chemical sticks that you see, and everyone can have one of those, and that's your only vision. But then, I might have little bits and pieces for people to find as we talk about things, and, talk about bioluminescence, and talk about, there's a type of night diving that you can do where you actually put a filter over your mask, a yellow filter over your mask, and you take down a black light, and you can see all of the coral and the creatures that actually fluoresce at night. So just like scorpions in the desert, if you look at them with a blue light, they actually fluoresce.
Oh, wow.
So,
how terrifying.
Same underwater. There's corals, certain corals, not everything. Certain crustaceans will fluoresce, like so bright. It's crazy, and you can see it from such a long way away, but you can't see anything else because you've got a black light. So it's a very different sort of night diving experience because you're very enclosed, and you sort of concentrate on a very small area, and you look at minute details. It's a very interesting way to dive. Even I was a little bit frightened of that the first time I did it. I thought, wow, can't see anything else. No normal torches. You can't have a normal torchlight near you at all, or it ruins your night vision.
Wow.
So, yeah. Fascinating.
How cool. I mean, I can imagine you doing a podcast about this in time and just telling all these stories and
great. I'm gonna hit you up.
I'm actually doing a podcasting series at the moment about the level 4 elective, because so many people have asked me about how to get started, and I'll say, I've been thinking about doing that podcasting elective, but it just all sounds a bit too hard.
It's daunting. It is daunting, but it's definitely the thing that happens. I have headphones that I wear to bed at night, and I listen to podcasts at night. I started with the traditional true crime one where you're thinking about someone murdering to put yourself to sleep.
Nice peaceful
really,
sleep time.
Just anything. When you're a very stressed person, I don't know if you've ever encountered this, Mel, but if you're very stressed and you wake up in the night, you can have a tendency to get into your own thoughts, and then it's difficult to go back to sleep. So I have discovered that with the sort of headphones that enclose, it looks like a bit like a headband and goes all the way around sort of head. So it's sort of snuggly and cozy as well. And also my partner can't hear anything that's going on whilst I'm listening to the podcast.
Makes a difference.
So if I've got that on, if I get up and go to the toilet at 2:00 in the morning or whatever, normally I would come back and I would have to pick up my phone or pick up a book or something to try and get myself back to sleep. Now all I do is just put my head back on the pillow. I listen to a few sentences from whatever podcast it happens to be at, and I'm straight back to sleep. It actually really works. So they're really important to me, and I've listened to so many things. I'm sort of hoping that the knowledge is going in whilst I'm sleeping. I don't know about that bit, but it's certainly working. So it's the way of the future.
I can completely relate to what you're saying. I have, at least for about the last 25 years, gone to sleep listening to guided meditations or visualizations and, plinky plonky music or whale song or whatever it happens to be.
Rain. So, now it's just listening to someone tell you about this guy who got murdered in the United States.
I wouldn't be listening to that. I can't be listening to that before I go. I want a nice peaceful sleep, but whatever works, right? I mean, I think it's just that voice, and
it is.
It gets you out of your own head and listening to
certain voices. Hugh van Cuylenberg, he's got a fantastic podcast that he does with his brother and a guy called Ryan Sheldon. It's a fantastic, and if you know anything about Hugh van Cuylenberg, he's the Mindfulness Project or something like that.
Okay.
He's a great guy, inspirational speaker, speaks to speaks to sportsmen and sporting teams and stuff, but goes to schools and all sorts of stuff. He's an amazing speaker, and he's got a beautiful voice. All three of them have got great voices. And and they interview some amazing people about resilience and stuff. So, yeah, he's my favourite at the moment. And Michael Mosley, I love to listen to his podcast. So I'm listening to all his back catalogue now that unfortunately he's passed away.
Yes, it's funny how you sort of go through waves of, listening to an entire back catalogue of people and you binge listen to all of their stuff, and then it's like, they're either not around anymore or you run out of things to listen to, or they stop the podcast, and it's like, that's sad. But I think it's such a interesting path for Toastmasters because we focus on storytelling and speechcraft and all the things, and it just lends itself to getting another 10,000 words out.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. And it's a great forum for you as well because, we all know that in a vibrant club that's got 20 members or more, I'm sure there's lots of Brisbane clubs out there, lots of Australian clubs out there, lots of worldwide clubs out there who've got lots and lots and lots of speakers who want to speak. So you can't always get in there and have your captive audience because you've got to make space for other people too. So if you've got your weekly podcast happening, then you've got your audience all to yourself. And
what I wasn't sort of necessarily expecting was Toastmasters to be listening to this content and sort of saying, it's so interesting learning about such and such. It's almost like the District Chronicles and names we may have heard of, and even I've interviewed members of my own club and they're like, that episode was so interesting, I didn't know that about such and such. So it's sort of it's just interesting. It's fun.
You're getting the tea.
The goss.
It's not just superficial Toastmasters. We're getting down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a fun project. I'm not intending to stop anytime soon.
No, I don't think you should. I think it's fantastic. I love what you're doing. And I think the questions that you ask are really interesting and relevant as well. And I think it's a good level for someone who's new, like me, having not participated in this sort of thing before, to know as well that you've got something to offer to an audience is really interesting. So I do hope that this goes well. And that people enjoy it, because it's nice to think that there's others out there who are interested in what you've got to say.
Definitely. Now, we've talked a little bit about your goals for this year, and one of which was just surviving and getting through. But like even in terms of working through pathways and focusing on your own speeches and things like that, do you have any particular goals for the year? Or
look, I'd love to finish my first pathway. I'm not sure if I will be able to quite achieve that. Maybe we'll see how we go, but that would be a really nice goal to have. I'm not going to be down on myself if I don't get to do that though, because look, particularly with this first 3 or 4 months, there is a lot of commitments that you have to do. So if you don't focus on yourself for that, then it's important to there's lots of other things that you can focus on. It's important to do service in an organisation that you do love, and it's obvious. I would hope that it's obvious that you love Toastmasters, and I love Toastmasters too.
Exactly.
And I do think that people who are involved in that service level, that's what they are showing. They're showing that they've got a commitment to the organisation, and it is important when you do love something like that to give back. And so, I'm happy for this first 6 months in particular to be about that. It's my time to give back to the organisation that, even though I haven't been in for a very long time, has so obviously given me very richly. So I'm more than happy to do that. And then, let's launch back onto some other things. I understand I can't enter any competitions this year, which I really did want to be in competitions last year. That's probably one of the areas of speaking that I am nervous about. I'm happy to get up and speak in front of people normally, but to be judged officially by others, that is an area that I do find a little bit confronting. And so certainly my stretch goal for when I am once again able to compete will be that that I do put my hand up and try and enter some of the competitions. Perhaps not the international one just yet, but maybe. But certainly things like the humorous and the table topics and things like that, I'd really love to give those a go.
Yeah, well, table topics you can't even prepare for an evaluation, so it's like you just get up and it's
Go
like
on the
another
day
club
and have a
meeting.
go.
Exactly. I mean, that is interesting about not competing. So I find myself now just encouraging everyone. I'm like, compete, go out and
Yes.
because if I
Yes.
can't, I want other people to compete. So
Yeah, want other people to have a go. So you
yeah.
have competed before, Mel?
Yes, I got to district level in May and I was in the evaluation contest. But yeah, I've been competing for the last 3 years. I've been in Toastmasters. So mostly evaluation and table topics. I haven't really got anywhere with an international speech and I haven't put myself forward up for that one. And I think I got to area level for the humorous contest in one club, but I was the only competitor, so that didn't really count. But
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, that's how I was going to the area one as well.
yeah. But the evaluation contest, like doing that at district level this year it was my first district conference, so it was the first time I'd been to one and my first time competing at that level. And so it was an amazing experience. And you just meet so many people and see so much at each level of competition. So area and division and district, the bar is raising each time. So it's a little more terrifying each time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah,
I can
but
imagine.
I'm happy to be having a bit of a break from that and, organising it and encouraging other people to participate. And also I did the judge training a few weeks ago, so I want to get a bit of experience in judging, which I think also makes you probably a better competitor because you know exactly what's going on there. So so contests are a bit of a future goal when you can.
Yeah, I think that'll be a bit of a stretch goal, I think, for me. And yeah, getting that first pathway done, I think will be really good. Maybe if I really push myself once we hit into January and things have slowed down, or even after October, once all of the area contests are over in October, I might be able to in the break write a couple of speeches, do a bit of preemptive planning and stuff for some of the things that I want to do next year. And even if I've got them up my sleeve, and then you can whip them out on a night if you're at a meeting and someone doesn't show up.
Yeah,
I think that's really important as a Toastmaster to have not just the stories, which I've done in the past. I've got plenty of stories that I can whip out as we discovered tonight. That's easy to do, but it would be good to have those things already there, ready to go, so that you can whip out something that's actually of benefit to you, not just of benefit to other people as well.
Yeah, definitely. I did a lot of my pathway last year by getting involved in, because I was president and I was seeing the agenda go back and forth. And it's like, hey, we've got a spare spot. And I always jumped in, and I always would say, if someone else wants to do it, give them the slot. But I jumped in. Sometimes it was 5 o'clock the night of a meeting and they're like, does anyone want to do a speech? Like, yeah, I'll do it.
That's a good idea. Got that in my head now. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna look ahead to what's coming up rather than just sort of giving myself the 2 weeks between meetings where you've put up your hand. Actually start to think about what's coming up and pop that on in my head and start preparing for some of these things. Great idea. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I definitely think it's worth having a few speech ideas in mind and even all the stories that you've got. It's like, all right, well, how would I weave them into a speech that I can use
and
for
make
pathways?
Sure I always carry my torches with me just in case it's time for the night diving one.
Yeah, well, you never know. It's just like a little talk around the campfire,
Yes.
You just never know when the opportunity might present itself. But I think that being prepared for any circumstances, it's you just never know what speaking opportunities are going to come up. So,
that's exactly right. And I think maybe that is what the lesson is for me. If I've got to take away from Toastmasters, it is that even though I suffer terribly from this imposter syndrome of thinking that I'm not good enough or I'm not going to fit in, or I know that we all have that a little bit, but some of us have it a little bit more than others. But I know that there's lots of things out there that I can do and that I'm capable of, and Toastmasters has really taught me that. All of the things that I've done even in this short time of the last year and the opportunities that I've been offered and have taken, they've shown me that I can stand up and do things that I didn't think that I was capable of. And I've even got my Google Drive working tonight before I got here on this podcast. So
there you go. You're cooking with gas. You'll be running contests next, half-day events, and it's.
Well, yes, I will be. I have to be.
I know. It's looming, but contest season is looming. So, Now, is there anything else that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Look, no, I don't think so. I think we've covered everything that I wanted to share, but I just wanted to say, look, a really big thank you to you for the opportunity. I mean, Toastmasters is a place of opportunity, as we've both seen and discussed a little bit tonight, but I saw this as a really big opportunity, and a bit of a stretch goal for me too was to do this, because of that sort of imposter thing. It's like, what have you got to offer? Don't do this.
I'm glad you did.
Hear what you've got to say. But I can see that, I do have something to say. And so I really appreciate that when I reached out and sort of said that I was interested, that you were wholeheartedly in agreement. And so I guess my final takeaway is a big thank you to you, because you've really shown me something about myself that I didn't really know.
Oh, well, it's a pleasure to have been talking with you. I'm glad we got to chat at District Leader Training, and that's one of the amazing things about this organisation is you get to meet great people from all over the state and sometimes the country. And
completely.
And so thank you for coming on and sharing your story and your vulnerability and your passion for so many things. It's been great. So, well, I wish you an amazing year and certainly all the strength for the next few months.
I know. We can do it. It's going to be okay.
It's
going to be okay. And we'll see each other throughout the year as well. So I'm not quite sure if I'll get to go to training in the middle. It might just be a bit much because it's a long way. It's always a long way to go for us. But definitely when the training is happening, the third block of training, I'll definitely make myself available to come along to that one. So hopefully I'll get to you and lots of the others that I met at the first session as well.
Absolutely. And by then we'll be sort of having a well-deserved drink to because we made
exactly
it.
What's going on.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Tammy, and all the best for this Toastmasters year.
Thank you. You too, Mel.
Thanks for listening to today's show. Head to talkativetoastmaster.com where you'll find the show notes for this and all other episodes, as well as links to some awesome Toastmasters resources. If you found value in today's content, I'd really appreciate if you could share it with friends and colleagues who may be interested. Or leave a review on iTunes. This helps more people to find us. Until next time, remember the words of D.H. Lawrence. Be still when you have nothing to say. But when genuine passion moves you, say what you've got to say and say it hot. Have a great week.